Yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Ogles, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to your witnesses for being here. Obviously, this is a high-stakes issue. I mean, it's the next battlefront, if not the battlefront, as we move forward. And when you look at the China threat that Ms. Zetter, I think you've touched on, or all of you have touched on, but specifically, I want to start with Ms. Bolton. So formerly, I was county executive in my community. And what I can say is that, although we were one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Tennessee, #1 producer for manufacturing jobs in the state of Tennessee while I was county executive, I can tell you that from a cyber and IT, OT perspective, we were arguably vulnerable. Please expand on that vulnerability when you look at bad actors as it relates to kind of, just our infrastructure security and what the consequences might be if there was a coordinated, systematic attack against those local communities.
So a lot of what we see, and you're completely right, a lot of what we see is that the threat actors are targeting the most vulnerable organizations, right? Many times those are smaller organizations without cybersecurity expertise. They're at the county level, they're at the local level, and you see actors either targeting those for target practice, learning, and then moving to bigger systems, or they're doing it in a coordinated manner across a number of different states and localities. Particularly, we see that in the energy sector, and they're using that as a means to prepare the battlefield, if you will, for if they're in a contingency. For if it's China, for example, if they're sitting on our networks, that is extremely dangerous. Even if they're not conducting any particular operations right now. One, we can't guarantee that they're off the networks, even when we find them. We find them too late. We find them 3 years after the fact. And what we don't want to have happen, if, for example, we're planning for a 2027 contingency, then we need to start doing the work now to build resiliency, defense in depth, the ability for those smaller local and county entities to be able to secure all of those ports, right? Secure the remote access, put in stronger multi-factor authentication, modernize their legacy IT. And that's why I think it's so important to reauthorize the state and local cyber grant program, because without those resources, like I said, most of those localities are using all the funding for physical security and not OT.
And Mr. Chairman, again, coming from that local governance background, county executive, and I'll speak for Tennessee. Obviously, everybody knows Nashville and knows Memphis, larger cities with more, arguably or hopefully more robust systems. But a lot of Tennessee is rural, just like a lot of states across the country. And what you see are electric cooperatives. So just like the county may be vulnerable to that infrastructure attack, my guess is, in most cases, so are those local cooperatives. So is some of the water cooperatives as well. And so as we look forward to, the next battlefield, and what keeps me up at night, and quite frankly, Mr. Chairman, what I would argue some of the most important work that we'll do on this committee, this whole committee, is what we're doing in cyber as we prepare this country for that next battle. And it's going to be on our computers. It's going to be across our networks. And I would argue it's going to be in our local rural communities that they're going to hit first, because then they can Swiss cheese our electrical grids and our water systems and our water treatment plants, et cetera. That's what keeps me up at night. So with that, I'd love to stay on this topic and just kind of go down the line. We'll start with you, Ms. Zetter, to see what you might want to add to this subject matter, please.
I think you're absolutely right in terms of the small utilities and cooperatives like that. They don't have the money, they don't have the resources, they don't have the expertise on staff. They don't even hire security people. But I want to also say that, we sort of anticipate that the large organizations would be more secure. And if you look at what happened to Colonial Pipeline in 2021, we see that this was really a major organization, critical infrastructure, supplying a lot of gasoline to the East Coast. And yet, Colonial Pipeline, at the time that it was attacked, did not have a CISO on staff. They also had a legacy system that the attackers got in, an old VPN account they were no longer using but hadn't bothered to disable. And they came in through a password that potentially was, it was leaked on the internet. So the employee who had the password had used it for other accounts, and then it was leaked on the internet in other breaches. One other point about that was the attackers, we think, only got to the IT network, didn't actually make it to the OT network. But Colonial Pipeline shut down the pipeline because they feared that the attackers would get to the OT network and then encrypt it and lock it. But when the CEO of Colonial Pipeline testified to Congress, he testified that they had very secure, highly segmented OT and IT networks. But if they were that confident that the networks were segmented, then they wouldn't have had to shut down the pipeline as a precaution. So I just want to say that, yes, those smaller entities are a big issue and a prime concern, but also the larger entities are having the same problems and not keeping up.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, and I apologize, Mr. Chairman, I'm over time, but I yield back.